There's an animal on this planet that has never been the fastest, the strongest, or the most physically imposing thing in its environment. It has no armor, no venom. Its skin tears on a sharp branch. Its jaw can't break a bone. In a fair fight against almost anything larger than a golden retriever, it loses. And yet, in the last 50,000 years, this animal has driven more large species to extinction than any asteroid, any ice age, any volcanic event in the last 65 million years. You are that animal. And the story of how your ancestors became the most lethal force this planet has ever produced is not a story about brute strength. It's a story about what happens when a species figures out how to think in systems. Let's start with the problem. Imagine you weigh 150 pounds. The thing you're trying to kill weighs 13,000. It has tusks that can gut you before you blink, a hide thick enough to stop a modern hunting arrow, and it can run at 15 miles per hour, faster than most humans can sprint for more than a few seconds. A direct confrontation is not a hunting strategy, it's a funeral. For the first 200,000 years of our existence, that was the situation. And for most of that time, the evidence suggests large game wasn't reliably on the menu. Homo sapiens was not, by default, an apex predator. We were something closer to opportunistic scavengers, picking at carcasses after the real predators had finished. Then something changed, not in our bodies, in our minds. The first breakthrough wasn't a weapon, it was a question. Around 300,000 years ago, someone, and we will never know their name, their face, or anything else about them except what they left behind in stone, picked up a rock and asked something that had never been asked before. Not, how do I hit this animal harder, but how do I make this rock do work that I can't do myself? The earliest stone tools weren't shaped for impact, they were shaped for edge. A hand axe flaked to a precise bevel angle creates a cutting surface harder than bone and sharper than any natural material available in most environments. That's not instinct. That's material science operating 300,000 years before the word science existed. But here's the thing about edge tools that's easy to miss. They didn't make humans better fighters. They made humans better processors. You could butcher a carcass faster, extract more calories per animal, carry more usable meat per kill. The weapon wasn't the point, the efficiency was the point, and efficiency is how a species with no natural advantages starts building surplus. And surplus is how you start having time to think. The first tool wasn't a weapon, it was time compressed into stone. The next leap took another 250,000 years. And when it arrived, it didn't look like much. A wooden shaft, a sharpened stone at the end, the spear. Every museum in the world has one. Every documentary about early humans features one. And for about a century, archaeologists assumed the story of the spear was simple. Sharp point on a stick, throw it at animal, animal dies. The faster you can throw it, the better hunter you are. In 2024, a team at UC Berkeley decided to actually test that assumption for the first time. They modeled the physics of a Clovis point, the iconic, elegantly fluted stone spearhead found across North America, dated to around 13,000 years ago, and calculated exactly how much force a thrown spear could deliver to a mammoth at realistic hunting distances. The results were not what anyone expected. A thrown spear generates nowhere near enough force to penetrate a mammoth's hide and reach a vital organ. Not even close. The physics didn't work. Which meant either ancient hunters were doing something profoundly ineffective for thousands of years, or they were doing something completely different from what everyone assumed. They were planting the spear in the ground. A 6-ton mammoth charging at 15 miles per hour generates 67 times the force the strongest human can produce with a throw. By angling the spear into the frozen earth at the correct degree, and the Clovis point's geometry suggests they had calculated this precisely, hunters transformed the animal's own momentum into the killing blow. The hunter stepped back, the mammoth ran forward, the spear went in. The engineering gets worse. The Clovis point's distinctive fluted base, the part that looks almost decorative to modern eyes, wasn't aesthetic. It was a designed failure point. When the tip penetrated flesh, the fluting caused the mounting to fracture in a specific way, expanding the wound channel from the inside. It behaved like a modern hollow point bullet. Not the same in mechanism, identical in principle. They designed a bullet without metallurgy, without blueprints, without a physics degree. They designed a bullet 13,000 years ago using nothing but observation, trial, and the accumulated knowledge of everyone who came before. The most dangerous animal on the steppe didn't kill the mammoth. It made the mammoth kill itself. But that was a solution for a specific problem: a charging animal in an open field. Ancient hunters didn't always have that luxury. Sometimes the animal was a herd. Sometimes the terrain was wrong. Sometimes the prey was too fast to set up a planted spear in time, so they built something else. From the air, they looked like enormous kites drawn into the desert floor. Two long stone walls stretching for hundreds of meters, gradually converging into a narrow funnel. You can still see them from satellite imagery today in Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Armenia, Kazakhstan, and the Andes. They've been there, quietly waiting to be noticed from above, for somewhere between 7,000 and 9,000 years. Stand at the wide end of one on the ground and you wouldn't know you were inside a trap. The walls are deliberately low, high enough to create discomfort, not high enough to look like an obvious barrier. Because the people who built them understood something fundamental about animal behavior. You don't need to contain an animal to control it. You only need to make every direction, except one slightly more uncomfortable than the direction you want it to go. Archaeologists call them desert kites. In 2022, 3 separate peer-reviewed studies confirmed their purpose simultaneously, which is itself remarkable. Independent teams, different regions, same conclusion. These were mega traps. Entire migration routes were funneled into killing grounds at the narrow end. Pits, cliff edges, or bottlenecks where waiting hunters had every advantage. The scale of coordination implied here is staggering. Building a structure hundreds of meters long in a specific location required knowing where herds of gazelle and ibex migrated, in what season, in what numbers. It required organizational capacity, designated roles. Probably something recognizable as planning across time. This wall, built now, will pay off in 6 months when the migration comes through. Here's the detail that stops me every time. These structures appear independently on opposite sides of the planet, built by cultures with no contact with each other. The same solution arrived at separately. That doesn't happen by accident. It happens when a problem has one optimal answer and the species solving it is smart enough to find it. Tell us in the comments. Where in the world are you watching this from? Around the same time those walls were being built, hunters in southern Africa were working on something that required an even more counterintuitive kind of thinking. They were learning to kill animals they hadn't touched. In January 2026, a study published in Science Advances confirmed something that rewrote the timeline for one of prehistory's most sophisticated technologies. Arrowheads recovered from Umla Tuzana rock shelter in South Africa, dated to 60,000 years ago, still contained detectable traces of a plant-based compound. The plant is called Giftblar. The relevant chemicals are cardiac glycosides. They disrupt electrical signaling in the heart muscle. In small enough doses, they don't kill fast. They kill slow and from a distance. That was the design. A Giftblar-tipped arrow didn't need to hit a vital organ. It didn't need to cause immediate trauma. It needed only to break the skin and enter the bloodstream. Then the hunter's job was patience, following the animal for hours, tracking it across terrain, watching from a distance as the poison did work that no spear could do. The animal might appear fine for a long time. It wasn't. Think about what that requires cognitively. You shoot an animal. It runs away apparently unharmed. You don't chase it. You don't panic. You follow it calmly, understanding that what you did to it 40 minutes ago is going to kill it, even though you can't see any evidence of that yet. That is not hunting. That is chemistry, pharmacology, and delayed causation operating simultaneously in a mind that won't be called scientific for another 59,990 years. The same poison, prepared the same way, was still being used by traditional sand hunters in southern Africa in the 1700s. Identical. 60,000 years of unbroken chemical knowledge passed from parent to child without a single written word. Across roughly 2,400 generations of humans, 2,400 times a parent looked at their child and said, "This is how you do it." And the recipe never changed. Not because they couldn't improve it, because they had already solved it. But of all the hunting strategies that ancient humans developed, the one that most completely defies expectation is also the one that required no tools, no architecture, and no chemistry whatsoever. It required only legs and time. The human body is a physiological disaster by any standard predator metric. No claws, teeth that couldn't puncture an orange, let alone a hide, skin that a house cat can draw blood through, a sprint speed that wouldn't threaten most prey animals. And yet we have 5 million sweat glands, more than any other species on Earth. Our Achilles tendons function as biological springs. The gluteus maximus, the largest muscle in the human body, is architecturally designed for sustained running. Not walking, not sprinting, running for a very long time. We breathe completely independently of our stride pattern. Four-legged animals physically cannot do that. Every gallop forces a breath cycle, which limits their endurance ceiling. A cheetah must stop and rest after 30 seconds of sprinting. A wolf overheats after a sustained chase. Almost every quadruped on this planet has a core temperature regulation problem when moving fast for extended periods. They can't sweat through fur efficiently enough. Their body heat rises. Eventually, they stop. Humans don't stop. Anthropologists have directly observed what they call persistence hunting among the sand people of the Kalahari, one of the very few groups on Earth still practicing something close to their original pattern. A group of hunters selects a kudu antelope and begins following it. Not chasing it, following it. At midday, in temperatures above 100 degrees Fahrenheit, the kudu sprints away easily, distances itself, and thinks the threat is gone. Then the hunters appear again. Calmly, steadily. The kudu runs again, distances itself again. The hunters reappear. This continues for somewhere between 2 and 5 hours. The kudu cannot understand what is happening to it. Nothing in its evolutionary history has prepared it for a predator that simply will not stop. Its core temperature rises. At a certain point, 107, 108 degrees internal, the animal's muscles begin to fail. It staggers. It collapses from hyperthermia, its own body heat killing it from the inside. The hunter walks up to an animal that can no longer stand and delivers a single blow. From the kudu's perspective, something has been chasing it for hours that never tires, never overheats, and never loses the trail. There is no response to this. Evolution has no answer for it. Nothing in the history of life on this planet had ever produced an enemy that could not be outrun, until us. Somewhere between 15,000 and 35,000 years ago, the archaeological record is still being refined. Humans added one final layer to this system. They started coordinating. At Schöningen in Germany, researchers found 8 engineered throwing spears lying alongside the butchered skeletal remains of at least 50 horses. 50. That is not the result of one person, one day, one hunt. That is a planned operation. Multiple hunters, pre-assigned positions, coordinated timing, someone who designed the hunt before it began and communicated that design to others. Someone who said, "You go here, I'll go here, and when the herd moves this way, we don't break position no matter what." Language made this possible. Not language as we think of it, novels, speeches, arguments, but language as a coordination technology. The ability to represent a future event in someone else's mind, to describe a location you're both not at yet, to assign a role to a person for something that hasn't happened. No other species had ever done this. Lions coordinate hunts through instinct and real-time visual cues. Wolves use proximity and momentum. What happened at Schöningen required the transmission of an abstract plan across time and distance from one mind to others before the hunt began. And then, sometime around 11,500 years ago, we know this because the archaeological record in Jordan shows it clearly, humans looked at another apex predator and made a decision that was either the strangest or the most logical thing any species has ever done. They decided not to kill it. They decided to recruit it. Cave art from Saudi Arabia, dated between 8,000 and 9,000 years ago, shows dogs wearing collars, on leashes, assisting coordinated hunts. The partnership between humans and dogs didn't spread slowly. It spread faster than any previous human innovation, across continents, across cultures, across environments, because it worked. A dog's nose can detect what a human eye cannot. A human's throwing arm can do what a dog's jaw cannot. Together, they could hunt things neither could hunt alone. The first interspecies alliance in the history of hunting. Go back to the 150-pound animal with no claws, no armor, no venom. In 50,000 years, which is less than a geological eye blink, that animal drove woolly mammoths, cave bears, giant ground sloths, short-faced bears, American horses, straight-tusked elephants, and dozens of other megafauna species to extinction across 6 continents. Not through physical superiority, never through physical superiority, through the patent-planted spear that turned a mammoth's own charge into the killing blow, through walls that made a gazelle walk willingly into its own death, through poison that killed 40 minutes after the arrow landed, through legs that simply refused to stop, through language that let one person's plan become a dozen people's coordinated action. through a partnership with another predator that made both more effective than either had ever been alone. Each of those innovations was developed by someone with no access to institutions, no written records, no ability to preserve their insight except by passing it to the person standing next to them, and the person standing next to them passed it on, and their children passed it on. Across 2,400 generations, the knowledge compounded, each insight layered on top of everything that came before, building a system of predation so total that the planet's megafauna, most of which had survived multiple ice ages and tens of millions of years of evolution, couldn't adapt fast enough. You are the end product of that chain. Every one of your ancestors, without exception, was smart enough, adaptive enough, and dangerous enough to survive long enough to pass their knowledge forward. The most lethal thing that ever lived isn't a T-Rex, it isn't a great white shark. It's the species that figured out how to make the world itself into a weapon, and it has been you all along.